Welcome to NACTV Reads the News. My name is Cathy McGrath, and I'm one of many volunteers that help create programming for our station. NACTV can be seen on MTS Channel 30 or 1030, Westman Cable Channel 17, Bell Satellite Channel 592, or online at nactv.tv. These programs are made possible by our volunteers, staff, advertisers, as well as donations made by you, the viewers. If you are enjoying your NACTV experience, please consider supporting us by either donation or volunteering. You can contact our office at 204-476-2639 or at nactv@wcgwave.ca. And today's issue of the Neepawa Banner and Press is for Friday, November 14th, 2025. And as Remembrance Day was this week, we will remember them. The Colour Party, led by the RCMP, paraded around the room to open Neepawa's Remembrance Day service at the Yellowhead Centre, where hundreds of residents gathered to pay tribute to Canada's veterans. And we have some more pictures from around the area. There's pictures from Minnedosa, Carberry, as well as Neepawa. The Remembrance Day ceremonies held in Neepawa, Minnedosa, and Carberry were well attended, as local citizens paid their respects to those who have and those who continue to serve our nation. As the photos show, all three communities had large crowds attending. It seemed as if the crowds were larger than average, and it was common to hear comments that the services were very moving. It's been 80 years since the end of World War II, 107 years since the end of World War I, and 72 since the Korean War. Unfortunately, there have been many wars since, and some are still ongoing. And we move on to Neepawa Town Business by Joshua Jackson. Almost 200 new homes are coming to Neepawa. The town of Neepawa's long-awaited Project 320 has reached another milestone in efforts to make it a reality. During the November 4th Town Council meeting, a public hearing was held to discuss a proposal to subdivide for Project 320 land and create several new public roads for the development. Once complete, the 58-acre subdivision will add 197 new residential lots in Neepawa, including both single and multi-family housing. As required under provincial regulations, a public hearing must be held whenever new roads are created through a subdivision. Project 320 will include several new streets: Murphy Way, Cleve Bay, Mackay Crescent, Gossel Avenue, Gill Drive to be expanded, Harris Avenue, Fusey Avenue, and Pollock Crescent. No new entrances will be added to Highway 5 or Highway 16. Instead, existing access will be upgraded. All future lots in Project 320 will be serviced by municipal water and sewer. New drainage work will require proper permitting and is subject to being installed near the Neepawa Airport. Some parcels of land in Project 320 will also require zoning amendments from light industrial to residential. Neepawa's Town Council unanimously approved the motion following the hearing. No objections were received from residents, though clarification was provided to one attendee regarding road placement. And here, although it's tiny, it is a description of the streets in the area. New streets names commemorate former mayors. No provincial or federal agencies raised concerns, though several requested additional documentation, including drainage and wetland reports. A traffic study and heritage resource impact assessment have already been submitted. In a tribute to the community's history, each new street will bear the name of a former mayor of Neepawa. William G. Pollock served from 1928 to 1931 and 1933 to 1947. William H. Gossel served 1908 to 1911. Robert Hezekiah Fusey served 1912, 1913, and 1931 to 1933. Thomas Jerome Murphy served 1924-25 and 1927-28. Edward John Harris served 1904 to 1905. J.L. Mackay served 1916 to 1921, and Dr. Paul Cleve served from 1947 to 1952. And we'll continue on. History preserved for the future. Beautiful Plains Museum holds its annual general meeting by Owen Devereaux. And pictured are new board members for the Beautiful Plains Museum, include Bryn Henderson, William Smith, Jerron Davidson, Melvia Gomez, and Brenda Henderson, pictured here with the past president, Helen Drysdale. A few months ago, it was uncertain whether or not the Beautiful Plains Museum would survive the year, but now it appears as though the building and the storied history that resides within will survive for years to come. The museum board held its annual general meeting in Neepawa on Tuesday, November 4th. This AGM was more than the usual review of the financials. It was a call to action to get more people involved to keep the volunteer-run operation open. Fortunately, that call was answered in the form of 5 new board members and 7 volunteers. The new board members are Jerron Davidson, Melia Gomez, Bryn Henderson, William Smith, and Brenda Henderson. Jerron Davidson has been named the board chairperson, taking over the position from Helen Drysdale. Davidson said the Beautiful Plains Museum is an important part of our region's heritage and that it's good to see many people step up to ensure its continued operation. I feel very good about the community support we're seeing here tonight. It shows that people still care about the heritage and value the local history this building shares with the community, noted Davidson. As for why Davidson decided to come forward in this manner and volunteer as a board member, he said he has always had a great interest in our local history and that it was time to step up. Davidson replaces Helen Drysdale, who along with the rest of the previous board have now formally stepped down. Helen will still assist the museum in some capacity, serving as the past president. She noted to the Banner and Press that she's feeling a tremendous bit of optimism about the future of this fine facility. The new board comes with so many skills and so many new ideas. It was just wonderful, said Drysdale. The new board for the Beautiful Plains also arrives, it seems, at just the right time, as 2026 will be the 50th year since the official founding of the museum. The financials. From an accounting standpoint, the 24-25 fiscal year was fine, though it could have been better. The total income from October 2024 to September 2025 was $22,834.03. As for expenses, they totaled $27,358.73, which contributed to a loss year over year of $4,524.70. The largest contributors to the loss were increase to the cost of insurance and some upgrades to the building and security system. The total assets for the Beautiful Plains Museum remain strong, sitting at $260,441.71. And the Rotary auction is preparing for its annual Neepawa Rotary is preparing for its annual auction by Owen Devereaux. An old fundraising favorite is returning this winter with new online home. Preparations are well underway for the Rotary Club of Neepawa's annual charity auction, with this year's edition scheduled for December 5th to 11th. Rotarian Murray noticed that while this will be the 6th year the auction has been offered online, there is a slight change to its setup this time around. A new website has been launched where the listings of all the available items up for bid can be seen. The items can now be found at www.district550.charity-auctions.ca. The reason for the change is due to a few technical glitches that were a bit of a minor inconvenience on the old website. This new site should solve that problem for bidders. Newton also mentioned to the Banner and Press that a few listings for this year's auction are already up on the site and that they plan to have everything online before the end of November. A full listing of items will likely also be published in a future edition in the Banner and Press. As for what's up for bid, Rotary members have been busy canvassing the businesses within the community to get donations. Historically, around 180 items have usually been available for bid, and the Rotary Club is optimistic they'll be around that number again this year. The online auction is Rotary's biggest annual fundraiser and sees all of the money raised ending up back into the community, supporting other local endeavors. Previous beneficiaries have included the Yellowhead Center, Arts Forward, NACTV, Touchwood, and Beautiful Plains Community Medical Clinic, just to name a few. This year, their main recipients of support will be Neepawa's new hospital project. To take part in the auction, bids must be made online on the club's website. All buyers must be registered to be able to place bids. Newton noted that if there are some people who don't have access to the internet but would like to place bids, they can contact Ron Nordstrom at 204-476-0174. And we move on to Right in Center by Ken Waddell. Reading is essential. I read with interest, an excerpt from a story in the Winnipeg Free Press on the weekend. The Manitoba Human Rights Commission published the long-awaited results of a probe into how schools are teaching children to read, or failing to do so, at the end of October. The 70-page report represents phase 1 of a special project that's become known as Manitoba's Right to Read. A follow-up on the implementation of investigators' recommendations is expected in 2026-27. Local investigators concluded that many teachers do not have training in structural literacy, a neuroscience-backed philosophy founded on explicit instructions in phonics, which stresses recognizing the connection between sounds and letter combinations. Nothing in those 3 paragraphs surprised me, but one phrase really caught my attention, namely, explicit instruction in phonics. Actually, the part about a follow-up in 2026-27 doesn't actually surprise me, but it greatly disappoints me. The phonics part only outlines what many of us have known for years. Phonics is very important. I know that our kids didn't get as good an education as we did over all 12 years. Our grandkids didn't either. It's now 71 years since I started school, and trust me, back in those days it was old school. Talking out in class without being asked was frowned upon. Reading out loud, standing by your desk, was both common and demanded. So was printing and cursive writing. Fast forward to a time a couple of decades ago, and many students were not taught how to write or read cursive. Apparently, many students are not taught how to read well at all. Don't get me wrong, it was a long time ago. But our version of school was also fun back in those days, 7 decades ago. And yeah, I knew you would ask, did students get the strap for misbehaving? Yes, they did, but it didn't happen often, and I never got the strap. If I had, I would have been in more trouble when I got home from school. Let me reminisce for a minute. I took all 12 grades in a 2-story brick school that was built in 1913, just 1 year before World War I. It had a big old coal furnace and huge electric lights, large windows, and the biggest doors ever. If you slammed one of those doors, it reverberated throughout the whole school. We had baseball and soccer at recess and noon. We had curling, hockey, football, and baseball teams. There was an annual Christmas concert and a Christmas, Valentine, and Halloween party. We had school dances with live bands. There was annual track meet or field day. It was a darn good school, and we learned how to read, write, and do arithmetic. We studied European and world history as well as Canadian history. And yes, we memorized poems and plays, math tables, and historically significant dates. I hope I am wrong, but I doubt that many students can rattle off the dates that each Canadian province joined Confederation. I think I still can. If kids today are having trouble reading, I fail to understand why 7 decades ago Manitoba schools could teach kids how to read, but not now. I have some suspicions. I suspect that somewhere along the line that discipline slipped a bit. Students didn't mouth off to their teachers back in the day, or at least they were smart enough to do it quietly. That said, I think discipline, and I don't mean yelling and screaming teachers who might haul off and hit a kid, needs to be pursued a bit harder. It takes discipline to memorize, it takes discipline to study, and it takes discipline to encourage students to carry through and finish their work. Generally speaking, I am greatly encouraged by what I see in today's students. They know about a lot more stuff than I do, but if they can't read well, they can get sucked in by every bit of false news and information out there. Because it's on the internet is no guarantee it's the truth. Reading is the pathway to knowledge and wisdom, so you can know the truth and the truth sets you free. That's pretty important. And again, the disclaimer, the views expressed in this column are the writer's personal views and are not to be taken as being the view of the newspaper staff. And Home Buddies by Rita Friesen. What can I do? There is a simple offertory song that has become my favorite. I do appreciate the strong, resounding words and music of the doxology. Praise God from whom all blessings flow. Praise God, all creatures high and low. Give thanks to God in love made known, Creator, Word, and Spirit, one. Sung with repeating amens gives me shivers, the good kind. And knowing that the words were written way back in 1674 by Thomas Kent adds weight and importance to the message. What Can I Do is much newer, written in 2005 by Paul Rumbold and Michelle McCarthy. And it is a joyful song of offering and dedication. What can I do? What can I bring? What can I say? What can I sing? I'll sing with joy. I'll say a prayer. I'll bring my love. I'll do my share. So joyful, so upbeat, so encompassing. I'm certainly not the first to remind you that Christmas is but 5 weeks away. The neighborhood is already blessed with fantastic holiday lights, and an evening walk reveals that many homes have their trees up and decorated. The festive music has begun as the planning and stressing, when we can see that there are so many ways we can give to our families and communities. It can take some of the pressure off. Close friends and family members have heard my stories many times, and I'll tell some of them again. It is the little things we unconsciously do that can be a gift, a blessing to others, known and unknown. A few years ago, I met with a family in the morning, planning a farewell. My schedule included another such visit in the afternoon, a heavy day. For a change of mindset, I stopped at a local fast food restaurant. The young lad, swabbing the floor, was quietly singing Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah. The threads of that song, offered without a thought or intention, brought my frayed edges together. What can I sing? There is a quiet, well, not always quiet, friend that bakes the best ever tea biscuits. Finding a tray of these warm from the oven delicacies is a gift beyond measure. She has some idea of how much I appreciate her culinary skills. What can I bring? I know how I used to stress over gifting. It was a combination of finding the perfect gift and balancing a budget. At my stage of life, these are not pressing problems. When the grandchildren were young, I explained to their parents that there were no or minimum gifts all year round, but we would all enjoy a summer vacation. No Easter, Christmas, Valentine, birthday, or any other cause for celebration gifts, but one fine experience in the summer. Before too long, we'll be offered gift catalogs from faith and community organizations. Several of my cousins have already decided that they are gifting a third world family with chickens. There are so many ways we can share that are meaningful here at home and around the world. What can I do? I'll say a prayer. I'll bring my love. I'll do my share. And we have Faithfully Yours by Neil Stroshine. I'm tired. From the moment I first heard one of his recorded sermons, I have been greatly blessed by the teaching and writing of Pastor Charles Swindle, 91, has retired from active ministry, but still guides the Insight for Living radio ministry that airs on over 2,000 radio stations around the world. He is a prolific author, having written or co-written 39 books. Several of them were in my library until recently, when I downsized and donated many of them, hoping that they would bless others as they have blessed me. One of his books, written in 1992, was a study on the book of Philippians, St. Paul's Epistle of Joy, and was entitled, Maybe It's Time to Laugh Again. In the opening chapter, he includes a piece by an anonymous author, which begins with the words, I'm tired. I've lost the piece included in Swindle's book, but what follows is a similar version of it. Yes, I'm tired. For several years, I've been blaming it on getting older, lack of sleep, weekend projects, stale office air, poor nutrition, carrying extra pounds, raising a family, recent colds, and a dozen other reasons that make you wonder why life is getting rough. But now I found out what's really happening. I'm tired because I'm overworked. The population of the USA reached 300 million last October. 79 million of the population are retired. That leaves 221 million to do the work. There are 19 million toddlers and 76 million students in schools, which leaves 126 million to do the work. Of that total, 21 million are unemployed, leaving 105 million to do the work. Then take away 34 million in hospitals, that leaves 71 million to do the work. 43 million are in prisons, and that's 28 million left to do the work. Subtract the, 14,683,468 federal, 5,344,722 state, and 5,370,743 city workers who run our government, and you're left with 2,601,067 to do the work. Finally, and remove the 2,601,065 people in the armed forces. That leaves just 2 people to do the work, you and me. And you're sitting there reading this. No wonder I'm so tired. Okay, that is supposed to make you laugh, and I hope it did. But I hope it also exposes you to an ugly truth. Our society is producing a generation of people who feel just like the writer who wrote the above piece. They are well educated and highly skilled. They do good work. They work hard. Now, after years of juggling work with community and family responsibilities, they are tired. And they have reached the age where they need to make some serious choices about retirement and life after retirement. Can you identify with what you've just read? Are you reading those words and thinking, yes, that's me? Well, you're not alone. There are many others just like you. I am one of them. We are all in this together. And we have an invisible ally. The God who created us knows just how tired we are. He will give us the strength we need to cope with today's challenges. And if we ask, He will help us decide how we can best spend the remaining years of our lives, however many or few they may be. More on this next week. And Beautiful Plains Museum history. The Clarksville class of 1945 is pictured. In the back row is Norma Clark, Shirley Colasar, Mary Perieski, Velma Collier, Murray Colasar, Alice Colasar, Helen Collier, Grace Colasar, Catherine Popine, Annie Ducensina, Maureen White. Middle row is Shirley White, Gerald Minkus, Clara Minkus, Gwen Flager, and Genevieve Perieski. Front row, Bobby Yakachuk, Mike Ducina, Robert Minkus, Tony Popine, Jack Burton, Murray Minkus, and Therese Andrusiak. The teacher of the class was Sybil Urick. Another student, Elwood Clark, was noted as missing from the photo. It's hard to see it on there. I know. And we're back to the Gladstone Market Report by Blaine Houston. The market was steady to higher than what we saw last week. We sold 1,548 head on Tuesday, November 11th. Here are some market highlights from the November 11th sale. 3 red steers weighing 525 pounds bring 703 a pound, or 3,690 a head. Black steer calves came in the ring weighing 675 pounds and cash in at 5.675 a pound, or 3,830 per head. 5 red and black calves weighing 734 pounds stamped their ticket at 537 a pound, or 3,942 a head. On the heifer side of things, 19 red and black exotic heifers weighing 548 pounds bring 622 per pound, or 3,408 per head. 7 red exotic heifers weighing 609 pounds and fetch 571 per pound, or 3,476 per head. 5 red and black heifers weighing 888 pounds bring 420 a pound, or 3,730 a head. Plainer type cattle are still seeing some discounts. And out of Helen's kitchen, Manitoba chicken. Those are hard to say together. And she just has a little bit of information. Manitoba is self-sufficient in poultry and egg production. Most of the hatching egg and chicken farms in Manitoba are family-owned and operated. They ensure that fresh chicken is readily available in our grocery stores. This excellent source of protein needs to be cooked all the way through. Cook whole chickens to an internal temperature of 180 degrees Fahrenheit, 82 Celsius, and chicken pieces and ground chicken to 165 Fahrenheit, or 74 Celsius. Of course, cooking time will depend on the cooking method and whether you must roast, grill, boil, etc. Chicken is easy to cook, versatile, and can be paired with so many different herbs and spices. You can't have too many chicken recipes, and she includes a recipe for chicken curry in a hurry and baked chicken rosemary. And Blowing the Dust Off by Joel Asselstein, the best free show in town. It's been a couple of years now since I went to work every day with a tool belt in the back of the vehicle. The daily grind of driving a skid steer, shoveling concrete, and cursing at the rebar tie guns and the pass load nailers is a memory. But, as many parent knows, time has a funny way of polishing the past. To my 2.5-year-old son, my old career isn't a memory. It's a source of pure magic. This was made perfectly clear on Monday morning as I wrote this. We had dropped Mom off at work, and as we drove, my son spotted a blue concrete truck. Now, this wasn't just any truck. The day before, I told him that if you see a blue concrete truck, Dad's friend is probably driving it. So when he saw it, he started bouncing in his car seat, begging, "Dad, see it! See the truck?" What's a dad to do? We followed it. We ended up parked outside the Gillen Small Building in Neepawa, where the crew from Chisel Construction was pouring a new curb. For the next 30 glorious minutes, we were front row spectators to the best free show in Neepawa. The rumble of the mixer, the smooth pour of the concrete, the skilled work of the finishers. It was better than any cartoon. It was a perfect, unplanned half-hour of wonder before I had to drop him off at daycare. And it got me to thinking, we're always looking for expensive, time-consuming entertainment for our kids. We drive to bigger cities for attractions and splash pads, which are great, but we're overlooking the spectacular theater happening right on our doorstep. Some of my son's best memories already have been forged right here, just by watching things get built. The mesmerizing roar of Stella Jones loading trains, the meticulous work of landscapers out by the hospital, the mighty tractors working in the fields that surround us, the awe-inspiring sight of a crane setting roof trusses, the beautiful roar of mechanical energy building something great, small, and everything in between. What we need isn't another expensive play structure, though those are nice too. What we need is a construction calendar. Imagine a simple community-run schedule, online or posted at the library, listing the days and locations where crews were working on significant projects around Neepawa. A heads up that the curb is being poured on Mountain or a roof's being prepared on Hamilton. I can't speak for every family, but I know for a fact that if such a calendar existed, then would be at least one little boy, probably many more, begging his dad to go watch. It's a simple pleasure, a connection to the real working world that built this town and continues to shape it. It's a chance to plant a seed of curiosity to our kids, the pride and power in a good day's work. And who knows, maybe we're not just raising spectators, but the next generation of operators, drivers, and builders. It all starts with a bounce in the car seat and the sight of a now famous blue concrete truck. Joel Asselstein is a resident of Neepawa who shows a passionate about old books and theology. In the words of Mike Winger, "I'm charismatic with a seatbelt." And disclaimer, this was expressed in the column are the writer's own personal views and not to be taken as being the view of the banner and press staff. And a submitted article, one of Neepawa's and area's veterans. Pictured is World War II veteran John Kaharski left with William Smith on the right. Raise a fist together as a sign of strength and resilience. Previously from Neepawa area, Kaharski currently resides in BC. And pictured on the right is a medal presented to Kaharski by the Republic of France in 2017. He was awarded the rank of Knight of the French National Order of the Legion of Honor. And I probably can't see it, but down at the bottom is Neepawa area veteran John Kaharski is pictured during his service. The date and location were not available prior to the paper's print deadline. So, this summer I had the great pleasure of interviewing John Kaharski, and what a privilege that was. On my return trip from Vancouver, I stopped in to see John in Kamloops, BC, and it was the day before his 105th birthday. He explained they already had a birthday party for him at the care home the week before. I asked if he had anything planned for tomorrow, which was officially his birthday. He replied in his very strong voice that he's going to take his scooter and tear up the town. Many of us are no stranger to the Kaharski name, with people like Eddie Kaharski, who played in his own band and volunteered countless hours in Neepawa, to Ernie Kaharski that ran the bus depot, and now you can hear his contagious laugh at the curling rink. I spent the rest of my visit going over John's secret to life and his collection of war memorabilia. Although I never really found out his secret, I got to know a very strong and assertive individual. So instead of finding a secret to his longevity, he gave me his secret to what everybody should pursue in life. You would think it would hold an animosity to the enemy he fought in World War II, but he gained respect for the soldiers that were on the other side. He deals with that today by saying they're no different than me and we're human as well. Respect your fellow man was the way he put it, and the world would be a better place. One impressionable statement I remember well is that he recalls seeing the German soldiers throwing their guns in a pile and surrendering and being very happy that it's over. As I concluded a very memorable and rewarding visit, I promised him I'd want to preserve his story. He said he would appreciate it if I put his story in the Neepawa press, as he knew it in his days. So this wish is the promise I want to keep. John was born in 1920 to his parents Frank Kaharski and Verona Payasaka, and raised with his two brothers, Frank and Philip. Their farm was in the Neepawa area near Eden. Later, he signed up for the army in Winnipeg in 1940 and left his future wife, Adeline Zinger, behind. He spent 10 weeks in Manitoba before moving to Borden, Ontario for tank training. John returned to Toronto in 1945. Adeline met him there, and they were married before returning to Manitoba. They farmed at Franklin for 13 years and then moved to a small acreage at Hilltop for 5 years. After he took up a job in Riding Mountain National Park, looking after the buffalo herd, he then took up a posting at the south entrance gate of the park. After retiring, they moved to Kamloops, BC, where he now lives in a retirement home. John and Adeline raised 2 daughters and 2 sons, and unfortunately, Adeline passed away. He then remarried to Orla North Flager, who has also passed away. John celebrated his 105th birthday on August 25th, 2025. Veteran John Kaharski shares his story of bravery and sacrifice fighting through Europe after landing at Juno Beach, courtesy of CFJC, today, September 27th, 2024. The Fort Garry Horse out of Winnipeg, Manitoba, was a cavalry unit during the First World War before being renamed the 10th Armored Regiment in 1941. The regiment was instrumental in the Normandy invasion, landing 69 tanks and 418 troops on D-Day at Long Juno Beach. One of the men tasked with bringing ashore the Sherman tanks was a 24-year-old by the name of John Kaharski. 80 years later, Kaharski now calls Kamloops home and is one of Canada's oldest living veterans at 104 years old. June 6, 1944, at 7:20 a.m., 80 years ago, and yet seemingly just yesterday, for Kaharski, who remembers the minute he reached the shores of Juno Beach on D-Day. 20 after 7 in the morning, bright daylight, and there was nothing but aircraft all over. Gunships were firing here. There was a lot of noise, Kaharski recalls. I remember that day. I can't help but remember. I can just see it too, the way guys were just running in the water, going. D-Day was the first time Kaharski saw action in the war. The Fort Garry Horse suffered 14 killed and 11 wounded, part of more than 1,000 Canadians wounded or killed that day. Oops, lost my grip. Kaharski was a target of German troops driving a fuel truck at night to fill up his Squadron 19 Sherman tanks as they pushed through Europe, helping liberate towns along the way. I drove a fuel truck, and Jimmy Chalmers from Hamiota drove an ammunition truck for A Squadron, and our work was done always at night, Kaharski says. There was a little light underneath the back of the Jeep. That light just might shine out. You could see it and you would follow that light. You never traveled with the lights on. Born to Polish immigrants, Kaharski was a first-generation Canadian who didn't balk at being the first member of his family to serve his country. Everybody else was going, and you know how it was at that time. Work was kind of hard to get, Kaharski told CFJC News. So I figured I might as well volunteer, go in the army, and go with the boys. Leaving for war, however, meant leaving behind his pregnant wife, not meeting his firstborn daughter until she was already 4.5 years old. I had a photo of her, and then she sent me a photo of my little girl. I had that in my wallet all the time, too, Kaharski says. I had a daughter. She was 4.5 years old before I saw her for the first time. She was sort of going away from me, so I started playing with her as another kid, out in the yard, jumping around in the grass with her, and one thing or another. So in time, she got used to it. And she's gone now. That moment nearly never happened, with Kaharski escaping death more than once while in combat. One day I came back and I left the camouflage net on the ground, and when we came back I picked up the camouflage net and threw it in the back of the truck. When I got up in the morning, there it was, one of the anti-personnel bombs lying on top of that soft net. It didn't explode, Kaharski says. If that would have exploded, we were sleeping right behind. That would have been gone. Sharing his story was not always easy for the Lance Corporal, as memories of grandeur, celebration, and camaraderie often mix with those of sorrow. Sergeant Finch was our transport sergeant, and he said Jimmy Chalmers and I were the two truck drivers. He drove the ammunition truck, and I drove the fuel truck. He said, when we get back, we're going to start a transport company in Winnipeg. About a week later, the poor guy got killed. Blew the bloody tank right up, Kaharski remembers. When word came of the Allied victory, Kaharski was in Oldenburg, in the north of Germany. Celebrations were slight shenanigans ensued with Kaharski crossing a canal in a canoe to fetch some drinks. He got out of the front of the canoe, and I was sitting in the back, and it almost tipped over, and I yelled, "For God's sake, get a hold of that thing." He pulled it down again, and I would have drowned because I can't swim, Kaharski says. When we got back into camp, Sergeant Major Tuff, his name was, he was pretty mad when he left, but pulled out a bottle. We knew he liked to drink. He just smiled and nothing more was said. Kaharski was recently awarded the King Charles III Coronation Medal on September 2024, a fitting honor for the 104-year-old soldier, who is one of the few remaining veterans who can say they fought for peace on the world stage in the service of king and country. He has a large collection of medals. He is among the few veterans of World War II still alive in Canada. Now to find where my page was. Showcasing the Tengnamo style, and pictured is Clemente Villamor Jr., also known as Akosi Tengnamo, pictured in front of some of his art pieces at Art Forward. This is by Casper Wareham. A Carberry Filipino artist is returned to Neepawa for an encore. For the month of November, Arts Forward is home to the exhibit Shanties by Clemente Villamor, also known as Akosi Tengnamo. This exhibition is planned a year before. I started collecting themed artworks from my last exhibit here, and I was looking through the journeys of my art, said Villamor. My last exhibition, it was chaotic. I had different kinds of spray paint and mixed media and everything I think my journey is done. I found the style that I wanted, and this, what's on display here, is the Tengnamo style. Faithful readers of the Neepawa Banner and Press may recognize Clemente's name and artwork from the June 16, 2023 article, Art is for Everybody. His artistic focus is mixed media, using a variety of recycled materials. Shanties is a collection of those works and highlights the Pasig River and Bay of Manila areas. There's more than 650,000 people reside in informal stilt communities built from reclaimed materials. The houses, the shanties that I'm depicting in the artworks, it's sad when you see it personally. In my artist point of view, the layeredness and the materials of the houses there in the Philippines, as you can see in the sculptures, the different textures and layeredness is what I like. I wanted to put in art form to create it as an art, said Villamor. Someone who lives in those shanties, if they see this, they'll probably appreciate this, and maybe seeing it will make them smile. Noting that the exhibit is a showcase of both hardship and resilience, he added, my goal is also to tell people how important houses are to people, and that we are so fortunate. I am so fortunate having a nice life here. Letting people know how life there in the Philippines is not so good. Much has happened for Clemente in the past 2 years. In addition to finding his style, last year he was also featured at a 3-month exhibit this year at the Art Gallery of Southwestern Manitoba in Brandon. Some of the works on display at Arts Forward this month were also part of the Brandon-based exhibit. Villamor's passion has led him to pursuing further his skills at Brandon University. I went to BU last semester, and I stopped this semester because of personal reasons, but I took up fine arts there for a semester, said Villamor. Most of my classmates were younger, and they were amazed at me doing exhibitions already. They thought that I didn't need to go to school anymore, and I said, I want to learn more. That was something amazing that happened to me last year, going back to school. Even though I was overwhelmed with the readings and everything, it was really amazing the experience I had at BU. Providing a final comment, Villamere wished to urge everyone, especially youths, to create. Create! If you're not creating, there won't be any art. People won't see, said Villamere. Everybody could be an artist. Creating could make them great. Create and create. Practice and practice. You'll learn from it. You'll learn from your mistakes, too. That's what I was doing before, too. Experimenting until I found what I like. And November 16th to 22nd is Restorative Justice Week in Neepawa, and pictured is Anastasia Artyuk, a 2024 NACI graduate, who receives the SPJC bursary from Lauren Huck, chair of the Spruce Plains Justice Committee, by Joshua Jackson. The town of Neepawa is joining communities across Canada and recognizing the power of reconciliation and accountability as the Town Council proclaimed November 16th to 22nd as Restorative Justice Week. During last week's Town Council meeting, a motion was brought forward by Spruce Plains Justice Committee, SPCJC, to make the proclamation. The committee covers the areas of Minnedosa, Neepawa, and Gladstone and is comprised of community volunteers. Restorative Justice Week has been recognized by the Government of Canada since 1996. The week is an opportunity to highlight and discuss the most recent achievements of restorative justice in Canada. What is restorative justice? Restorative justice offers a philosophy and approach that views these matters principally as harm done to people and relationships. Restorative justice is a non-adversarial, non-retributive approach to justice that emphasizes healing for victims, accountability for offenders, and the involvement of citizens in creating healthier, safer communities. In Manitoba, a restorative justice approach can be used at any stage of a case by police or Crown prosecutions and is frequently used to address the offending behavior of individuals outside of the formal criminal justice system. The Spruce Plains Justice Committee in action, the SPJC, does plenty of work in the coverage area, from aiding with alternative justice measures to providing a forum for education, disposition, and reconciliation of offenders within a community. The committee also provides Neepawa in the area with information and education concerning crime and crime prevention. The SPJC recently launched a bursary for local graduating students. In 2024, the SPJC initiated a liaison program with NACI to develop awareness and participation in restorative justice locally. The bursary, awarded to graduating student Anastasia Artyuk, was established to assist students with post-secondary education. Manitoba's Restorative Justice Act was Canada's first provincial territorial restorative justice legislation, which came into effect on November 18, 2015. And we move on to sports. A reason to celebrate. NACI Tigers win 2 of 3 in Westman hockey, by Owen Devereaux. The Neepawa Tigers came out of a hectic week with a pair of important wins in the Westman High School Hockey League. It all started with a huge 4-1 win over the Verdun Golden Bears on Wednesday, November 5th. Kellen Hawken helped secure the victory with a pair of goals. Jude Carr and Ian Foster also scored for the Tigers. Goaltender Harley Smith-Belisle faced 38 shots to earn the win. Going into the weekend, Neepawa traveled north to Dauphin to challenge the Clippers. Despite putting an impressive 51 shot on goal, the Tigers were stonewalled by Dauphin goalie Ben Miller and lost 2-1. Ben Richard collected the only goal of the game for NACI. This would be Neepawa's first regular season loss. The Tigers bounced back on Sunday, November 9th, with a 4-3 win in overtime against the RMSH Renegades. After jumping out to an early lead off goals from Luke Nicholson, Ethan Bray, and Kellen Hawken, the Renegades stormed back in the third. The comeback was capped off with the tying goal with just 18 seconds left in regulation. Fortunately, Neepawa reclaimed the win, with Carter Cruikshank scoring in OT. The win improved Neepawa's record to 3-1-0. The Tigers' next home game, excluding the November 12th tilt versus Hamiota, played just after the Banner and Press publication deadline, is scheduled for Sunday, December 7th, against the Vincent Massey Vikings. Start time at the Yellowhead Centre is set for 6:30 p.m. And the Neepawa Farmers win in Wawanesa, results from around the Tiger Hills Hockey League by Owen Devereaux. While it took a little bit of time for the Neepawa Farmers to get going, once they started, it was impossible for the Wawanesa Jets to stop them in the latest action around the Tiger Hills Hockey League, THHL. Neepawa traveled to Wawanesa on Friday, November 7th, and a little bit of road lag may have followed the Farmers out there as the Jets scored the first 3 goals of the night. It wouldn't be until the midpoint of the second period when Neepawa would reply as Brett Lewandowski scored on the power play. A few minutes later, Garrett Rempel scored as well, cutting the Jets' lead down to 1. That lead was soon nothing more than a memory as Kyle McDonald tied things up at 3-3. Then, with only 9 seconds left in the period, Rempel scored his second of the night on a short-handed opportunity, making it 4-3 for the Farmers. Lewandowski and McDonald each contributed 1 more apiece in the third to secure a 6-3 for the visiting Farmers. Lewandowski and McDonald both had 4-point efforts, 2 goals, 2 assists, while Rempel, 2 goals, 1 assist, and Cohen Kalbaki, 3 assists, had 3 points on the evening. Austin Michaluk made 25 save and goal for Neepawa. The result improves Neepawa's record to 2-1-0 in this early portion of the regular season. Minnedosa win home opener. The Minnedosa Bombers' home opener saw them cruise to a 5-0 win over the Deloraine Royals. After a scoreless first period, the Bombers put away 4 goals in the middle frame. Wes Lewis, Zach Lamb, Tyler Jury, and Matt Saylor each scored. Michael Birch added 1 more in the third, while goaltender Jason Argue made 23 saves and picked up the shutout victory. With this result, the Bombers improved to 2-0-0. And Carberry fall in overtime. A massive 5-point effort from Tavish Quinn, 2 goals, 3 assists, wasn't enough for the Carberry Plainsmen as they lost in Melita Bison in overtime 7-6. Trey Dixon also added a hat trick for Carberry on the night. This defeat drops the Plainsmen regular season record to 0-2-1 on the year. And just a little picture, if anybody can see it, Northern Lights illuminate the night. Manitobans were treated to an amazing light show on Wednesday night in the form of the Aurora Borealis. The Northern Lights were so bright that many people, including Jayla Parsons of Gladstone, took time to enjoy the night sky and capture those stunning images on November 5th at 9:26 p.m. And now we'll go back to Looking Back by Casper Warehan. 125 years ago, 1900, Franklin, Mr. C. North and family moved into our village last week where they intend residing for the future. Harold Ray of Glenella shot a fine elk the other day which dressed 494 pounds. It had an elegant pair of antlers and the head has been placed in the hands of T.H. Harrison for mounting. 100 years ago, 1925, there was fair demand on Saturday in the KP Hall for goods made by the blind, principally brooms, basketry, and whiteware. Purchasers had their thoughts directed to wonderful work being done by the Institute and takes charge of the blind and makes them useful members of society. A drowning in Park Lake was narrowly averted on Monday. The ice is thick and safe except in the vicinity of the exhaust from the powerhouse, and it was here and the near tragedy occurred. Presence of mind and of companions saved the unfortunate boy. 75 years ago, 1950. Now in Toronto to compete with all Canada contestants in swine judging, Calvin Wepton and Maurice Devison of Neepawa received their trip by virtue of winning their 4th consecutive provincial championship last October in Brandon. The lads were trained by C.E.G. Bates, district agriculturalist, and have been constantly active in the Union Inkerman Swine Club, led by W.A. Drysdale. A Manitoba pioneer woman, Mrs. Emma Roundtree, 76, who came to the province in 1888, died November 6 in the Winnipeg General Hospital, with burial rites held in Riding Mountain Cemetery. She married Alex Roundtree in 1888 and moved to Riding Mountain in 1915. Her husband predeceased her in 1934. Mrs. Roundtree leaves 3 sisters to mourn her loss: Mrs. Alex Mason, Porcupine Plains, Mrs. Percy Laudrum, and Mrs. Minnie Scott, both of Neepawa. 50 years ago, 1975, and the sodding the NACI field for the Manitoba Games. And pictured is an NACI student lending a hand with the advanced preparations for the Manitoba Summer Games. This photo was in the November 13th, 1975 edition of the Neepawa Press and shows the student aiding with the sodding of the soccer fields at NACI, a large feat undertaken by staff, groups, and volunteers. More than 175 people, many of whom either lived through the war years or actively participated in one or other or both global wars, met to remember those who had fallen in the European or Pacific theaters at the semi-annual meeting of Branch 23 of the Royal Canadian Legion in Neepawa. Advanced preparations for the Manitoba Summer Games got underway with the leveling and sodding of one of the necessary soccer and field hockey fields at NACI. Attorney General Howard Pawley has announced the appointment of Leonard Elphinson as District Registrar for the Neepawa Land Titles District, effective November 6. He succeeds E.R. Goosen, who resigned last April. On Sunday, October 26, Mr. and Mrs. Bob Emery held open house to honor his parents, Mr. and Mrs. Steve Emery, on their 50th wedding anniversary. A beautifully decorated cake made by Mrs. Bob Emery centered at the tea table. During the past week, Padre Wilton Fraser, representing the Neepawa Legion Branch 23, presented a child's wheelchair to the Neepawa District Memorial Hospital. 20 years ago, 2005, 2 people were injured in accidents as the second major snowfall of the season reduced visibility and made driving treacherous throughout southern Manitoba early last week. Planning and Economic Development Committee and NADCO Chairman Terry Volden said the town is looking into partnering with area RMs to establish a biodiesel plant. Former Neepawa Councillor Arnold Bud Birch is being made an honorary life member of the Association of Manitoba Municipalities. Birch served on Neepawa Town Council from 1995 to 2002. Prior to moving to Neepawa, Birch farmed in the RM of Rosedale. He was elected to represent Ward 5 in 1975. Birch went on to serve as Reeve of the RM from 1980 to 1992. Birch also sat on the board of the former Union of Manitoba Municipalities. He was elevated in 1988 and represented the Central District until 1992. The National Farmers Union is calling for environmental hearings on the proposed expansion of Minnedosa's ethanol plant. And finally, as always, NACTV. Our annual general meeting is November 24th, 2025 at the library. We're looking for volunteers and board members. And if you're watching TV, highlights of the week, What's the Big Idea? Awarding and previous winners. November 17th at 12:10, November 19th at 8:10 p.m., and November 22nd at 1:10 p.m. And Neepawa Titans Hockey, Titans versus Selkirk. November 18th at 3 p.m., November 20th at 10:30 a.m., and November 22nd at 7:30 p.m. And don't forget our bingo every Wednesday at 7 o'clock. And that concludes the paper for Friday, November 14th, 2025. Thanks for watching.